My name is Hrishi. I actually am a PhD student in UCL under Mike Batty and Carl, and I'm almost in the last end of my PhD. I just wanted to say welcome to the workshop. I think it's going to be a very interesting couple of days. We've done longer workshops, but this is going to be good. Before I begin, I wanted to thank Tim for organizing this. It's really great to have this opportunity to come here and work with Ballal and John and Mary. You see some of the work that we've done already. So there's a bit of work that went in before you guys came in. Like I mentioned, my research is in collaborative design and how people from different professions can come together and do design in a very short time frame, and which is what we're going to do. And so today, what I'm going to do with you is first get you into the system, and secondly, just explain to you very briefly some of the basic operations that you will need to do for the next defense task. So what we'll do is essentially join the project and explore diagrams and evaluations, and that's where we'll stop. And there is other part of the training which will be there later today, and some of it will be tomorrow. So firstly, you should go to geodesignstudy.com. That's the website.
Do it in Firefox or Chrome.
That's right. And what we're going to do now essentially is to review requirements and diagrams and assessments, and then the final two synthesis and the change will come later. Once you get into geodesignstudy.com, you should see a screen like this. Click on the sign in button at the top. Then you should see a sign up for a new account link here. And then create a username. It's that simple. I think it needs an email, and it will send you a kind of a link to verify that email. And once you are joined in, you'll see a page like this, and all I need you to do is click on the All Projects link at the top. And if you have questions, just raise your hand. I'll come by. Can everybody see their profile page? Or I just added it?
Oh, you just added it?
You can just sign in with your
email it.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's just added?
Yeah, I just added it from the back.
Okay, perfect.
We can just sign in with your. Is everybody in? You should see a blank screen with a plus over here. Yeah. And type in this project name to join it. You're going to join the test project. It's not caps, it's all small caps. UWA test. That's the name of the project that you need to join. Once you join, you should see a box on that screen that says you're part of it. Are you in the project? You should see a screen like this. My screen is a bit misleading because I'm part of many projects. But you should see a box which has the invite code and UWA test.
What if we don't see that screen? Here.
Oh yeah, we type in UWA test.
Are you in WA? Got it, you got it, that's fine. You in? Gina, you in? Yeah. Okay. You guys are in? Yes. I think everybody's in.
Okay, so you should see a box like here on the screen with a green check mark saying working project underneath it. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So the next step here is what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a brief introduction on the diagram, evaluations, and the assessments. What you do then, if you scroll at the top, there should be a diagrams link at the very top where my mouse is. If you click that, it will load the diagrams page. And this is the real site that we're going to kind of look at.
This is a test site. This is a small example.
Yeah. I'm going to kind of walk you through this interface very quickly so that you get familiar with this. Is everybody in the diagrams page? You may have problems, but the first thing you can see here is the grid, and what you're seeing over here is the assessment maps. See over here? These are the 10 systems. In this case, you're seeing two, the agriculture and the low-density housing system. This is just an example of what kind of maps that you will see in the tool when we get to the real project. Firstly, you can actually change the grid size depending on the screen. So if you have a kind of a newer high-performance computer, you can actually make it bigger. You would need a bigger resolution for it, so it makes it just a little bit more legible. The assessment maps can be expanded. So you see these two arrows over here?
Well, it can all be expanded with the large. Are these large size already?
Well, yeah, they are large. So everything is large, and that's the small grid. You see these kind of changing there. To look into one map, I'm going to kind of hit this expand button over here. And now watch what happens. The map is enlarged with the assessment shown here. This is our study area, as you can see. Seattle's right there. And what this is an assessment of the system done by Mary, Willawam, and John. And they can talk in more detail as to what's going on and how this map was made. But essentially, this is like a low-density housing assessment. What you're seeing over here is a suitability analysis. The green areas. The green areas are suitable for low-density housing. The red areas are not so suitable, and yellow is obviously somewhere in the middle. Although the map is in 5 colors, which is kind of important, the color setting. The dark red is this pattern that you see here. The next red is this orangish kind of red, and then there is a yellow, and then there are 2 types of green. So the darker the green, the more suitable it is. The next shade is kind of the less suitable, and yellow, and so on and so forth. And there are a couple of things going on here. You can actually use the layer manager to switch between the satellite map and the base map. So here you have a black and white map and a satellite map. The other thing here is this is from University of Washington GIS server. You have all the major water bodies in the area. You have all the transportation layer, if I take some time to show up. And you have an existing land use as well. And you can kind of circle and switch through some of these as you kind of explore this over here. So you should be able to turn on there. So the land use map is actually quite data intensive. So it takes some time to show up, and you can see there's some kind of things coming through.
And Hrishi, you can't change the size of the map itself.
You can.
That's right. So you actually can. You can just go zoom in and out into this.
Right, but the container is a fixed size.
No, that's fixed.
Yeah, that's fixed. And that's fixed because the screen sizes are different. And, you can't have accommodate for every single screen size. So that's really one of the kind of the main windows that you would work in. You've seen the evaluation map and the different layers that are there to familiarize yourself with the area. Next, here you're seeing 2 systems. In the real project, when we do join it, there will be 10 of them in this kind of a horizontal row. I'm going to skip the dynamic updates for the moment.
Do show them both systems on top of each other.
That's right. So the next step here is this link called Analyze Assessments. So if I hit back, watch what happens. I'm going to turn off all my overlays. And then I'm going to select a low density housing and my mouse at the bottom, and then the agriculture requirement. So what this is doing is showing those maps at, I think, 30% or 40% transparency on top of each other. And what you're going to see over here is areas that are common color coded between the two requirements. As you can see here, there's a dark red pattern over here, so there's agreement between the maps, and then there's some muddy colors. And in the real project, you should be able to select all the 10 systems. And so this would help you find places that are more suitable or less suitable for your project and policies.
So if the colors are bright, it means that there's the overlap is commensurate.
Exactly.
And you're not adding
No,
these together,
no,
right? So
visually,
it's just overlaid.
It's just
So I have to
overlaid.
turn them on and off to see if they're actually matching.
That's right.
That's correct.
But one of the simple, really simple techniques that's useful is put all your environmental maps on top of each other, look at it. Then put all your development types on top of each other, look at it. And then put them all together and look at it. That's step number one. But it gives you a hell of a lot of information about not worrying about other parts of the stuff here.
And I'll show you some information about the color coding scheme a bit more for each of the different systems.
Now I'm going to scroll down a little bit to the diagrams pane. And what we're going to do now is add a diagram, sketch it into the map, and then you'll see as I proceed what happens. Now watch my mouse carefully here. I'm clicking the Add a Diagram button here. Now let's say I have an idea to add low-density housing, let's say near Enumclaw or Kent or any of these places. So what I have to do is once I click there, you have this modal window that comes up. Just watch this for the moment and then you can kind of play around with it. I choose a requirement first where I want to put it. So in this case it was low-density housing. One thing that I kind of also failed to mention was that in the tool you will see abbreviations everywhere. So we don't really have space for all the low-density housing that's X. So therefore we use AG, FORS, or LDH or HDH. So you have to kind of familiarize yourself a little bit with that. And so here's my idea to build a kind of a new houses, let's say. And I'm going to type it in. As Carl mentioned, every diagram, every idea is public property. So even though I am adding it, other people are going to look at it and discuss it and maybe come back to you to ask questions and things like that. So I would say have a nice descriptive title for the diagram of what it says and what it is. Avoid things like test, diagram, or things like that because other people are going to see it. It's just not for you. So let's
assume that it's sufficiently self-explanatory in the text.
I'm going to click Add a Diagram here. Now watch what happens.
Is there an outside limit to what you recommend for like file?
Twitter, 140 characters, SMS, that kind of thing. I hit Add a Diagram. Now there are two things that would have happened now. This diagram is added to everybody's screen. And everybody will see this diagram. Now I'm going to add my housing to this diagram. So the first thing I do is I click the Edit button at the top here. I'm clicking the Edit. So this brings up the Edit panel at the bottom. And I'm going to draw a simple polygon that represents...
Tell them the options.
That's right. So add 1 hectare is a point, kind of a feature where you can actually, a simple diagram that says, here is something. For example, here is my new farm. Or kind of add point-based features into the map. A line could be something like a road, a waterway, railroad, things like that, that you can represent using lines. And polygons are essentially areas and zones.
And the other one is import external data.
That's right. So we have, you can actually import GeoJSON and KML and all of that stuff. You may or may not have it, but that is enabled in there. I'm going to add a polygon. As Paul mentioned, there are two types of really ideas, and that kind of is similar to the Escape of the Tigers exercise. One is a policy type polygon, which means that it is a law. It is something that doesn't have any material impact on the landscape itself. And the other is a project. Project is essentially new construction, new housing, something that is going to change or alter the area. So in this case, since I'm building, my idea is to build new houses, it is a project. And let's say I am going to build my new housing. Again, all of the overlays that we mentioned work here. So this is the low density housing. overlay. Now I'm going to identify good areas. So in this case, I see this little yellow patch over here. It's kind of a really nice place to build housing. And then I kind of, I'm just using this sketch tool and my mouse to build this polygon. You can go as kind of precise as you want, or as unprecise in this case as I am. Once you have this polygon in there, I'm going to hit this save button on the top here. What should happen now is this diagram should be available for everybody who has joined the project, and their grid should have updated with this diagram. So if you scroll down at the bottom, you will see I see a few of the have added it as well. But this is all the new diagram number 4 for me here, and I can select it and unselect it. And so if I want to edit it, I do the same process. I hit the expand key.
There it is. It is there.
Yeah.
It is number 1.
Yeah, that's it. And then I hit the edit button again, and then I actually click this edit existing feature at the bottom here. And then I can actually start to kind of zoom in and do some kind of edit. Let's say I want to extend it. And then I hit save again. And then I hit save again. And what that means is that this feature is edited. So we have a way for you to add your projects and policies and edit them. One thing that you see visually here is policies are these hatched kind of polygons. So that's a quick visual way to figure out what's going on in a box. I would say something as a practice over here. A diagram should have usually just 1 or 2 components in it. Don't make composite diagrams because it's very hard to kind of separate the diagram. So for example, in this case, what this diagram, for example, is saying is do a policy here and build some kind of a low density housing here. But what if I just want one of them and not both of them? So when you draw composite diagrams, these kind of problems are kind of happening when other people see it. So somebody may like your policy but may not like your project, or vice versa. So therefore, what would be like a best practice, I should say, is build 2 diagrams, one for this and one for this, and you could correct both. And that's the kind of I should say best practice essentially, because once you get familiar with the tool a little bit more, then you can get into composite diagrams.
And the system interprets this as a housing piece because of the requirement you set at the very start.
That's correct. So it's in this column. So the diagrams can't move. You cannot say, well, this is housing and I'm going to make it agriculture or whatever. You have to specify where it fits in the beginning. And that's kind of important. So in essence, if you wanted a housing diagram but you by mistake added in agriculture, you just start over and add a new diagram in house.
Can you remove a diagram?
Yes, you can, but you can't. I can. Because the reason for that is a very, very important.
Very important. No, you go ahead.
It's a very important reason. Diagrams are firstly public property, and just because you changed your mind, it may mean that somebody else is already using it, and he or she likes the diagram, and so it may be a part of their plan. So to remove it all of a sudden just because you don't like your idea anymore is quite dangerous for the other person.
And any diagram by anybody gets a unique column and number, and then is in the system. We've erased things to make simpler test examples to throw at students or something like that. But once you're in a workshop, you don't erase it. And that's a real problem because you get redundancy, you get tiny little differences that nobody knows. It does become a multiplication of details issue.
I wanted to show something else to you guys. At the top here, you see this bell with the counter. as you can imagine, this whole grid is live, and as people are working on it, you will get updates. So this is something that can be quite handy if you're just wondering what happened. I have to say it can be just an information overload because a lot of things happen when you can imagine 20 people are working on the same grid. So that's one way to kind of keep in track of what's going on. That's a good question. And that's really it.
Now, do one more thing. Why don't you show the dynamic update?
Okay.
This is important. This is important.
Right. So now watch. This is the really kind of the dynamic stuff that we're testing now. So this is the low density housing polygon, as you can see over here. What I want to do is try to see how this polygon impacts the agricultural map. So if I build a low density housing estate, let's say in this location, what happens to the agricultural map? So the first thing you have to do is to select something in your design before you do any sort of updates. And the way to select it is quite simple. You just select this checkbox. Check now. Once it's checked in your design, if you scroll down a little bit, my screen is a bit kind of wonky, but you should see your changes map in the middle, and the left-hand side map is the one that you selected. So I have selected the low density housing 1 diagram. I can actually remove it by using this button here. And actually add also by clicking this grid. So touch my mouse, that's it, it's added in that grid. So you have a couple of ways to add a diagram into your design. Now, let's say I want to see, this is really a composite of your design. Now, what I can do then is I can scroll up back here and then click this update assessments button. Now watch what happens. Depending on how fast
It's calculated. You can see the little circle.
Yeah, it's trying to kind of do, if you remember my low density housing, that's the original agriculture map. And then I put my housing in there, so it became worse for agriculture. It went from green to yellow, and it had no impact on its own. But that's, once you have a set of diagrams and policies and a set of projects, the evaluation maps are updated.
Let me give a lesson here on this. So what Hrishi has done is, to make believe it's not housing, make believe it's industry or high-density housing. He says, let's put the housing in, and now we have to add sewers and transportation. Well, we could just have done the reverse. We could say, let's put the sewers and transportation in, upgrade the evaluation, and then put the housing in. So the chicken and egg problem is solved by this updating dynamically.
So now you could choose to use this map as your map and forget about this. This is more as a reference of where you started. And that's what some of the things that we are testing in this workshop as well. The other thing that I can show you is this. On the right-hand side, and this is when we come to the change team part, and so it's not really relevant at the moment. But what I can also do is I can actually see people in the workshop who have some diagrams selected. So Rob, I see, has 2 diagrams selected. So I can actually use this as a conversation tool and collaborate with them and see which diagrams Rob has selected, and then if you just pull on those, you can see their grid and their.
So this is us, and this is me.
This is me, and then this is everybody else who joined the project.
So, for example, this afternoon, you have 3 people, let's say, on a team, and you decide you're going to do the transport part, he's going to do the ag part. You each have your own computer working, and you're seeing how they fit together as the diagrams are chosen or developed.
Another question. So then I do this opposite, the update assessments, right? What gets priority? Is that in the order that I have done first? Because you have a conflict of what's what, right?
You'll see this afternoon that one of the things that the team does is it rank orders the systems, and that readjusts the columns.
Right, and
So
then
the
you
left-hand
say
column.
this is most important, so I
Right.
take that first and then
Right,
everything.
just like the method that I showed you.
Yes.
In other words, the computer is going to reorder the diagrams as a function of your decision model. And their team has a different decision model and a different order, however, the numbers of the diagrams stay the same.
The final thing that I want to show you is to understand how your diagram is performing. So is this a good design or not? So as you can see here, I put in this polygon, and at the bottom here, you see how the performance is of that diagram. So as you can see, it's in good agricultural land, and it's a simple overlap analysis of that diagram on top of the two valuations.
So you picked an area that the agricultural model wants to protect, but it's a great housing site.
And this same information is shown in more detail at the bottom when you click on the compute detail index button. Essentially,
Don't scroll down. This is really important. It tells you how big it is. You've got 840 hectares of housing.
I haven't set the target for the test project, but in the real project, Tim and I, Tim had provided us with targets. And there are two sets of targets, and so we have 20-year targets in place, and then once we get to the 50-year, we'll update the targets.
So will we work in hectares?
Yeah, but I have it set up as acre hectares.
So there's also been a way to measure your success in terms of what.
Clear. And then it tells you in the distribution on the map how many reds to greens you have in terms of hectares. And that lets you do indices. If you believe in indices, it can calculate an index.
So this is
And
the
there's a
overlap
cost model.
analysis, essentially, that of the polygon. So if you can imagine this very low density housing requirement, all it's showing you is how much of that polygon falls on what part of that requirement. Similarly, you can have the charts here. So it's exactly the same, except it's in a bar chart format. This is the impact of one selection across all the systems. So, like you saw in my example earlier, it falls in green agricultural land, and that's the kind of intersection between them. And final thing, you see these little handles here. We found this to be a great way to jump across these things.
Instead of scrolling, you go, get me back to the front or the back of the thing.
So I mean, you can use that. I'm not going to talk about the change keys and the priorities. I think we'll get to that when we get to it. But at the moment, I think just familiarize yourself a little bit with this, add a few diagrams, select them, and once we are ready, I'd say in the next 5 minutes, I'll kind of give you the code for the real data set, and then we can start adding the diagrams.
Okay, so go into this test and make a polygon and make a line and save it and see what happens.
So for the overlays, it shows you green, is that good or bad?
No, that's important. Red consistently means stop, don't go there. Green consistently means either it's a great site or it's a problem that needs to be addressed. Green means do something here. Okay, either build a house there or mitigate an erosion problem. Red means things are great. Protect.
I think Carl mentioned earlier, think of it as traffic lights.
Yeah, think of it as traffic lights.
Red, do not go there, stop.
Green does not mean ecology, okay? Green means there's something that needs to be done on this site.
So if I put in a polygon and it shows me that it's 50% red, that means that I've gone into a region that I should be protecting.
Exactly. You've got a problem. Red means I've got a problem. Green means I'm too agree.